closer I slowed down and started to feel a chill running down my spine as I realized that something wasn't right. As I was about to turn back, I heard a different sound, a low growling noise, coming from behind me. I spun around and shone my flashlight in the direction of the noise, only to see a pair of glowing eyes staring back at me. It was a huge, menacing-looking wolf, its teeth bared in a snarl. I stumbled backwards, my heart racing as I realized that I was alone, in the dark, with a dangerous predator. I turned and ran as fast as I could, hearing the wolf's growls and snarls getting closer and closer behind me. As I burst through the tree line and back onto the road, I felt a sense of relief wash over me, until I realized that my car was gone. In its place stood a tall, dark figure. Its face obscured by the shadows. It started to walk towards me, slowly, methodically, and I realized with horror that it was not human. I turned and ran again, my heart pounding in my chest as I raced towards my house, hoping against hope that I would make it there alive. But as I turned the corner onto my street, I saw that all of the houses were dark and abandoned, their windows broken and their doors hanging off their hinges. The only sound was the wolf's growls, growing ever closer, and the creature's footsteps behind me. I knew that I was trapped, with no way out, and that my fate was sealed. As I ran down the deserted street, I couldn't help but wonder what had happened to my quiet little town. It was as if a bomb had gone off, leaving nothing but destruction and chaos in its wake. I could hear the creature's heavy footsteps behind me, its breath hot on my neck. I didn't dare turn around, for fear of what I might see. Instead, I focused on running as fast as I could, hoping to find some way out of this nightmare. But it seemed that every turn I took led me deeper into the darkness. The street lights flickered and died, leaving me in near total darkness. The only sound was my own ragged breathing and the creature's menacing growls. I had no idea where I was going, but I knew that I had to keep moving. I could feel the creature getting closer, its hot breath now on my ear. I closed my eyes, waiting for the inevitable attack. But it never came. Instead, I heard a strange, guttural sound, almost like a laugh. I opened my eyes to see the creature standing in front of me, its eyes glowing in the darkness. Its mouth twisted into a grotesque smile, revealing rows of sharp, pointed teeth. "Welcome to my world," it hissed, its voice echoing through the night. I tried to run, but it was too late. The creature was on me, its claws tearing at my flesh. I screamed in terror, but no one came to help. I was alone, in the darkness, with a monster that wanted to kill me. But even as I felt my life slipping away, I knew that this was not the end. There was still a chance, a glimmer of hope. If only I could find the courage to fight back. With a burst of energy, I pushed the creature away from me, grabbing the baton that I had dropped earlier. I swung it at the creature's head, hoping to knock it out. But the creature was too fast, dodging my blow with ease. It hissed at me, its eyes glowing brighter with anger. "You cannot defeat me," it growled. "I am beyond your comprehension. You are nothing to me." But I refused to back down. I swung the baton again, this time connecting with the creature's shoulder. It roared in pain, lashing out at me with its claws. I dodged its attack, swinging the baton again and again. I could feel my muscles straining with effort, but I refused to give up. I knew that I had to keep fighting, no matter what. Finally, with one last, desperate blow, I knocked the creature to the ground. It lay there, its eyes closed, its breathing ragged. For a moment, I thought that I had won. But then the creature opened its eyes, its face contorting into a snarl. "You may have defeated me," it said, "but you have not won. You cannot escape this place. You are trapped here, forever." And with that, the creature vanished, leaving me alone in the darkness. I looked around, trying to find some way out. But all I saw was emptiness, an endless void that stretched out in every direction. I knew that I had to find a way out, but I had no idea where to start. I felt lost, hopeless, and alone. But then, in the distance, I saw a faint light. It was small, almost imperceptible, but it was there. And I knew that it was my only hope. With a burst of energy, I ran towards the light, my heart pounding with hope. And as I drew closer, I saw that it was a doorway, leading out of this nightmare. As I approached the doorway, I could see that it was made of shimmering silver light. It pulsed and flickered, beckoning me to come closer. I hesitated for a moment, wondering if this was a trick. But then I remembered the creature's words, I was trapped here, forever. I knew that I had to take my chances. With a deep breath, I stepped through the doorway. At first, everything was dark. But then, slowly, the world around me came into focus. I was standing in a small room, dimly lit by a single candle. In the corner, I saw a figure huddled in the shadows. As I approached, I could see that it was an old man, with long white hair and a beard. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice shaking with fear. The old man looked up at me, his eyes filled with sadness. "I am the keeper of this place," he said. "I have been trapped here for centuries, alone in the darkness." I felt a pang of pity for the old man. He seemed so frail and alone, yet he had been trapped here for centuries. "How do I get out of here?" I asked. The old man looked at me, his eyes brightening with hope. "There is a way out," he said. "But it will not be easy. You must face your fears, confront the darkness within yourself, and emerge victorious. Only then will you be able to escape this place." I felt a shiver run down my spine. Confront my fears. That sounded like a task too great for me. But then I remembered the creature, and the terror I had felt when I faced it. If I could defeat that monster, maybe I had a chance. "Tell me what I need to do," I said. The old man smiled, his eyes twinkling with amusement. "First, you must find the key," he said. "It is hidden somewhere in this room. Look closely, and you will find it." I looked around the room, searching for the key. It was small, barely visible, but after a few moments I saw it glinting in the candlelight. I picked up the key, feeling a surge of hope. Maybe this wouldn't be so hard after all. But then the old man spoke again. "Now comes the hard part," he said. "You must enter the darkness, face your fears, and emerge victorious." I felt a wave of panic wash over me. The darkness? That sounded like a death sentence. But then I remembered the creature, and how I had defeated it. If I could do that, maybe I could face whatever lay ahead. With a deep breath, I stepped into the darkness. At first, I could see nothing. It was as if I had stepped into a void, an endless expanse of nothingness. But then, slowly, shapes began to form. Shadows, flickering in the darkness, taking on form and substance. And then I saw it, my worst fear. A monster, looming over me, its eyes glowing with anger. I felt a surge of terror wash over me. This was it, the moment of truth. I had to face my fear, or die trying. With a deep breath, I swung the baton at the monster. It dodged my blow, lashing out at me with its claws. I felt its claws tear at my flesh, felt the blood pouring from my wounds. But I refused to back down. I swung the baton again and again, striking the monster with all my strength. Finally, with a final, desperate blow, I knocked the monster to the ground. It lay there, its eyes closed, its breathing ragged. For a moment, I stood there, panting, waiting for the creature to get back up. But then I realized that it wasn't moving. It was dead. I felt a surge of triumph wash over me. I had faced my fear and emerged victorious. Maybe I could escape this place after all. With renewed energy, I pressed on through the darkness. More monsters appeared, but each time I defeated them with the baton. It was as if my fear had given me strength, had made me unstoppable. I emerged from the darkness into a brightly lit room. At the far end of the room, I could see a door. I ran towards the door, feeling a sense of hope and excitement. I had made it. I was going to escape this nightmare. But then, as I reached for the door handle, I heard a voice. "Stop." I froze, my hand inches from the handle. Slowly, I turned around, and saw the old man standing behind me. "You have done well," he said. "You have faced your fears and emerged victorious. But there is one more thing you must do." "What?" I asked, feeling a sense of dread. "You must free me," he said. "I have been trapped here for centuries, and only you can set me free." "How?" I asked. "You must sacrifice yourself," he said. "You must stay here, in my place, and take my burden upon yourself. Only then will I be free." I felt a surge of anger wash over me. Sacrifice myself? Was he insane? But then I thought about all the things I had seen and experienced in this place. The darkness, the monsters, the fear. Maybe it was better to stay here, to take on this burden, than to face the horrors of the outside world. And then I thought about the old man, and how he had been trapped here for centuries. Maybe it was time for him to be free. With a deep breath, I nodded. "Okay," I said. "I'll do it." The old man smiled, his eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you," he said. "You are a brave soul, and I am honored to have met you." And then, before I could react, he stepped forward and touched my forehead. For a moment, everything went black. And then, slowly, I felt myself fading away, disappearing into nothingness. When I opened my eyes, I was standing in the darkness again. But this time, I wasn't afraid. I knew what I had to do. With a deep breath, I stepped forward into the darkness. And this time, I wasn't alone. The old man was with me, his hand on my shoulder, guiding me through the darkness. And together, we faced the monsters, and emerged victorious. In the end, it wasn't about defeating my fears, or escaping this nightmare. It was about finding a way to help someone else, to ease their suffering, to make their burden a little bit lighter. And in doing so, I found a sense of purpose, a reason to keep going, even when everything seemed hopeless. As we walked through the darkness, towards an unknown future, I knew that I had found something truly precious. Something that could never be taken away. Together, the old man and I pressed on through the darkness, facing whatever challenges lay ahead. We encountered more monsters, more fears, more doubts. But with each step, we grew stronger, more confident, more determined. And then, finally, we emerged into a bright light. At first, I thought it was the end, that we had finally escaped the nightmare. But then, as my eyes adjusted to the light, I realized that we were in a different kind of darkness. We were in a hospital room. The old man was lying in a bed, hooked up to machines, his body frail and weak. But he was smiling, his eyes shining with a sense of peace. "You did it," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "You set me free." I smiled back at him, feeling a sense of joy and relief. "You're going to be okay," I said. The old man shook his head. "No," he said. "But that's okay. I've lived a long life, and I'm ready to go. And now, thanks to you, I can do so without regret." We talked for a while longer, reminiscing about the journey we had taken together, about the monsters we had faced and the fears we had overcome. And then, finally, the old man closed his eyes, his breathing slowing down until it stopped altogether. For a moment, I felt a sense of loss, of grief. But then, as I looked down at him, I realized that he was at peace. He had found what he had been looking for, and now he was free. As I left the hospital room, I felt a sense of purpose, of hope. I had faced my fears, but I had also helped someone else face theirs. And in doing so, I had found something that I had been searching for my entire life. A reason to keep going. As I stepped out into the sunlight, I realized that I had come full circle. I had started this journey in darkness, in fear, in despair. But now, I was leaving it in light, in hope, in peace. And I knew, without a doubt, that I was going to be okay. I spent the next few weeks reflecting on the journey I had taken with the old man. His courage and strength had inspired me to face my own fears, and his kindness and compassion had shown me the true meaning of empathy. But as the days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into months, I began to feel restless. I had overcome my own fears, but I wanted to help others do the same. That's when I decided to start a support group for people struggling with anxiety and depression. I reached out to friends, family, and colleagues, and slowly but surely, our group grew. We met once a week, sharing our struggles and triumphs, offering each other support and encouragement. And as we did so, I realized that I had found my calling. Helping others face their fears and find hope in the midst of darkness was what I was meant to do. Over the years, our support group grew into a non-profit organization, offering counseling, therapy, and support to anyone struggling with mental health issues. We held workshops and seminars, reached out to schools and community centers, and slowly but surely, we began to make a difference. But despite all the good we were doing, I still felt a sense of restlessness. I knew there was more I could do, more people I could help. That's when I decided to write a book. I wanted to share my own journey, to offer hope and inspiration to others who were struggling with their own fears and doubts. I poured my heart and soul into the book, writing late into the night, revising and editing until it was perfect. And when it was finally published, I was amazed at the response. People wrote to me, thanking me for sharing my story, telling me how much it had helped them. I was invited to speak at conferences and events, sharing my message of hope with people all over the world. And as I traveled, sharing my story and meeting new people, I realized that I had found my place in the world. I had faced my own fears and overcome them, and now, I was helping others do the same. Looking back on my journey, I realized that it had all started with that night drive home from work. It had been a dark and scary moment, but it had also been the catalyst for the greatest journey of my life. And as I looked ahead, I knew that there would be more challenges, more monsters, more fears to face. But I was ready. I had faced my darkest fears and come out the other side, and I knew that whatever lay ahead, I would be able to face it with courage and strength. Because I had found something even stronger than fear. The more I faced my fears, the more I realized that hope was the key to overcoming them. When I felt hopeless, I was powerless against my fears. But when I had hope, I had the strength to face even the scariest monsters. And so, I made it my mission to spread hope wherever I went. I knew that there were countless people out there who were struggling with anxiety and depression, who felt like they were alone in their struggles. But I also knew that they weren't alone. I had been there, and I knew that there were others out there who had faced similar struggles and come out the other side. So I continued to speak at events, sharing my story and my message of hope. I wrote more books, offering practical advice and tools for facing fears and finding hope. And slowly but surely, I began to see the impact I was having. People were reaching out to me, telling me how much my words had helped them. They were sharing their own stories of overcoming fears and finding hope, and I knew that we were making a difference. But as much as I loved what I was doing, there were still times when I felt overwhelmed. There were still days when my own fears and doubts would creep in, and I would wonder if I was really making a difference. That's when I would think back to that night drive home from work. I would remember how scared I had been, how helpless I had felt. And I would remind myself that I had found a way to overcome my fears, to find hope even in the darkest moments. And I would think about all the people out there who were still struggling, who needed someone to show them that there was a way through the darkness. And I would know that I had to keep going, no matter how hard it got. Because I had found my purpose. I had found something that gave me meaning and fulfillment, something that made me feel like I was making a difference in the world. And so, I continued to write, to speak, to help others face their fears and find hope. And every day, I felt grateful for that one scary night drive home from work, for the way it had changed my life and led me down a path of purpose and fulfillment. In the end, I realized that the scariest moments in our lives can also be the most transformative. When we face our fears head-on, we discover that we are capable of so much more than we ever imagined. And when we find hope in the midst of darkness, we discover that anything is possible.